This week on Christian World News, as the bombs are falling and millions of people are fleeing Ukraine, meet the missionaries who are choosing to stay and how they're helping others survive. Plus, amazing rescue. This woman helped bring 31 orphans out of Ukraine. Now she's fighting to get them to America, where they can wait out the war. And from fights in the air to fury on the ground, find out why so many Americans are enraged and what can be done to dial down their anger. Welcome to Christian World News, everyone. I'm Wendy Griffith. Just over 1 month now into the war in Ukraine, NATO estimates as many as 40,000 Russian troops killed, wounded, captured, or missing. That's about 20% of the invasion force. Meanwhile, NATO announced more military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine, while the European Union is cutting down its Russian energy imports. U.S. President Biden announcing that the war and the sanctions will have an impact on the global food supply.
With regard to food shortage, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well.
With their advance stalled, the Russians continue to bombard civilian areas. The port city of Mariupol reportedly is more than 90% destroyed, and Kyiv, the capital, now under daily air attacks. When war came to Ukraine, a small band of Christian missionaries chose to stay and serve rather than flee to safety. They've become a lifeline for thousands of people in need of food, encouragement, and simple human companionship. George Thomas brings us their story from Kyiv.
When war started and Russian bombs began falling on Kyiv,
we had our bags packed because it's just like you're in a rush and there's a new situation. Out of a sudden in the morning, you wake up and you hear the sound of bombs. So you're like in a rush and you're like, whoa, like what is happening?
Marie and Jafine had to make a decision whether to leave the capital.
It was not an easy decision, but until we prayed. But once we prayed, it was a very easy decision.
Jafine is from India. His wife, Marie, is German. Both missionaries to Ukraine with the group Youth with a Mission.
Growing up in India and also doing ministry in India, this was not my first time being in a dangerous situation. In fact, this is the third time.
They decided to stay because of a commitment to serve the people here, despite the very real danger to their lives.
We also committed to marriage, staying in good and in bad times. We are not only here trying to make an impact when times are favorable, but especially when things go really bad and when people are leaving. This is the time when we actually need to stay.
This is the heart of Kyiv. It's popularly known as Maidan. And today, it is a fortress, concrete slabs, sandbags, and these metal structures are aimed at stopping Russian tanks. Today, half the city has already evacuated. And for folks at YWAM Kyiv, it's all about ministering to those who are still in the city.
30 minutes south of Maidan.
Wow. From Germany.
All from Germany.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jafine and Marie sprung into action, turning the sprawling YWAM campus into a humanitarian aid hub.
And they're just dropping all of these things here. So our job is to sort all these things out so it looks chaotic.
Natalia Turbina and her 2 sons work in the kitchen, making meals for the folks in the neighborhood.
It depends on the day. Sometimes there are days when we cook for 1,000 people, sometimes 500 or 600.
Wow, look at you peel. You are like a peeling machine. Wow, look at how fast she's peeling those potatoes. Wow.
The only thought that gave me peace was to go back to Ukraine. So that's why I'm here. Okay, and while I talk, I try to keep my eye on the 19A.
Katarina, also a YWAM missionary here, is from Finland.
I'm not saying that God was the one who forced me to go to the war zone. or that it was somehow like I didn't have a choice. I had a choice. That was my choice. My choice was to come here, and God opened the door. Вы сейчас дома?
She evacuated just before war started, but returned days later.
Wait, we're walking up 12 flights of stairs?
Yeah.
Got it.
Now Katerina hits the streets of Kyiv delivering food and other aid supplies to those unable to leave their apartments.
Thank you for how much you love her.
Each visit ending with time of prayer.
That's okay, I don't know Ukrainian either.
While Katerina makes her daily deliveries, David Selsky, who normally handles maintenance on the YWAM campus, is making dangerous missions to evacuate people trapped behind Russian lines.
Every time when I go to these areas, I prepare myself that I might not get out of there. I pray every time. I'm not counting, but I've evacuated more than 100 people. I just work and work as long as I can, and as long as God allows me to help.
In another part of campus, Yulia Kentz, who has been with YWAM for 5 years, is on the phone taking orders from a nearby neonatal hospital. Almost every other day, YWAM campuses in Germany and other European countries are shipping medical supplies to Kyiv for distribution. Ken's daily prayer is that God will sow confusion among Russian forces trying to encircle her capital.
There is this very good saying that if Russia will put down their weapons, there's going to be no war. But if Ukraine will put down their weapons, there's going to be no Ukraine. And this is so true.
When they're not handling day-to-day logistics or sorting through all the supplies coming in from around the world, Jafine and Marie visit elderly homes, bringing food and lots of warm hugs.
We are so bored, but the time flies when you are here. It is so tender. It is something for the soul. It is so pleasant. It is wonderful.
For Jafine, Marie, and others at YWAM, ministering in Ukraine's war zone is ultimately about fulfilling a commitment to serve.
I think it's not so much about handing out food packages now or like cooking meals or like distributing some humanitarian aid. That is not the main thing that God has been preparing me for, because everybody can do that. But the hard thing to do is to do it while you hear the shelling of bombs and while you see continuously on the news how in your city, not far away from you, a building is burning and people are dying. But I just do it because of love for the country and because of commitment to saying I'm not stepping away. And then if I feed 2 people or if I help to feed 1,000 people a day, maybe in my heart it doesn't make a difference because my commitment to God is just the same.
George Thomas, CBN News, Kyiv, Ukraine.
It makes a difference. Thanks, George. Coming up, fighting to save the least of these. This woman helped deliver 31 orphans from the war zone. See why she believes her fight isn't over. Welcome back. More than 10 million Ukrainians have been driven from their homes by this war. More than 3 million have fled the country to neighboring nations. In Poland, CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground ministering to these new arrivals, providing hot food, drinks, blankets, and a place to rest and refresh before moving on. During his recent trip to Europe, U.S. President Joe Biden pledged America will begin accepting refugees.
Many Ukrainian refugees will wish to stay in Europe, closer to their homes. But we've also will welcome 100,000 Ukrainians to the United States with a focus on reuniting families.
Meanwhile, a Missouri woman has helped rescue 31 orphans from their home in western Ukraine. And her mission is to get them to the United States to wait out the war. But they've already been there 3 weeks and they're stuck in Poland waiting for visas. Recently, I spoke with her about this ordeal and how she was able to help them escape.
Wendy, you are in Poland right now with 31 orphans awaiting visas to come to the U.S. What compelled you to leave your own family and 5 children, 5 daughters, and come and rescue these orphans?
Yes, well, our oldest daughter was adopted from Ukraine when she was 16 years old. And so my husband and I just fell in love with Ukraine and the children of Ukraine. And so we have committed our life to support Ukrainian orphans and to work with them. And we have a very close partnership The children's home there that we support. And so they are like an extended family to us. And so I've been here for the last 2 weeks with them just to support them and help make life as normal as it possibly can be for them under these circumstances. Just as we would support our own family members, I'm here to support them.
So how were you able to help them, rescue them from their orphanage in Western Ukraine and get them across the border into Poland?
So we purchased a large bus for them several years ago just to use for transporting the kids to school and to town for various things. And so when we started hearing that a war might be imminent, we made plans with them that they would receive government approval to take the children across the border to Poland using their bus. And the day after they received the government approval, they loaded up and they traveled over. I hopped on a plane and we met here in Poland.
So right now, you're waiting for visas to get these children, all 31 of them, to the U.S. to wait out the war, but you're stuck in Poland. What's the holdup?
Yes, so our orphanage director is a U.S. visa holder, and it is his desire to be able to bring all 31 children to the United States with him under his care for as long as is needed until it is safe for them to return. Our goal is ultimately for them to go back home to Ukraine. That's where their home is, that's where our ministry is, and so we desire that for all of our children. But until it is safe to return to Ukraine, we would love for them to be closer to us, where we can love and support them at our home. And so what we're facing currently is a very delayed reaction to the visa process for Ukrainians seeking temporary shelter in the United States. Our consulate here in Poland is understaffed and overwhelmed. And so even if you go online to apply for a visa and pay your visa processing fee, there are no appointments available at all. Because our children are in Poland and they are registered here with the Ukrainian consulate, our best option is to try to obtain these visas in Poland. It is our hope and our prayer that soon we will have answers, that maybe the consulate will receive reinforcements from other countries to help with the workload so that these visas can be processed in a more timely manner.
How are the children doing? They've been in Poland 2 weeks now.
It's tough. They don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. They're living out of suitcases. They want to go home more than anything. But if that is not possible, as it isn't right now, then they would like to have a place where they can settle until they can return. And where they are right now, while we're so thankful for it, it's not a long-term solution. They're sharing the building with 60 other refugees. They're tired and they're weary, and they just need to be settled.
Yeah. Wendy, what is your prayer right now for these kids and for Ukraine?
Well, our greatest prayer is for the war to end. We love Ukraine, and there were bombings near the city where our children live today. And so it just is a reminder that the war is ongoing and that it is getting closer to home for our kids. So we pray for the war to end. And in the meantime, we pray that they can get visas to come be near us, their extended family. I feel just so sad for all the orphans in this situation. They've already had to deal with so much trauma in their past. And so being displaced is just adding to their trauma. And so we want them to be as loved and well cared for and as much of a sense of normalcy as possible to help them get through this tough time.
And as you can imagine, Wendy Farrell says they need help. They need funds to help take care of these orphans indefinitely. If you would like to help or like to learn more about Wendy's organization, just visit oneuproject.org online, or you can find their link in our story on cbnnews.com. Coming up, anger in America. In a nation blessed with prosperity and freedom, why are so many people angry? And what can we do to reduce the rage? Rage has become the new normal in America. Whether it's fights on airplanes or outbursts at school board meetings, Americans seem angrier than ever. Some blame the pandemic, while others fault the deep political divide. Whatever the cause, the constant conflict is undermining our relationships, our communities, and even our democracy. Charlene Aaron brings us this look at what can be done to diffuse the anger.
It's official. Our national mood has turned sour, with a recent poll showing more than half of Americans angry about the state of the country. After seeing it play out on the news or across the dinner table, many say it's time to end the rage and heal the wounds. From fights in the air to angry outbursts at school board meetings.
My children will not come to school on Monday with a mask on. All right? That's not happening. And I will bring every single gun loaded and ready.
Outrage has become the new normal.
There's no end of provocations that are playing a part in this.
On CBN's The Global Lane, Peter Wood, author of Wrath, America Enraged, blamed pandemic restrictions and other issues for the rise in tempers.
The arrival of large numbers of people on our Mexican border, the backing up of ships off the West Coast and East Coast trying to deliver goods here, the unleashing of inflation into the mainstream economy. Each of these has brought the temper of mainstream Americans to a near boil.
Stats tracking the conflict over mandating masks for airline passengers tell the story. The FAA reported almost 6,000 cases of unruly passengers last year, a big jump from the 146 complaints filed by flight crews in 2019. Differing political views often the driving force. According to Betsy Sinclair, a political science professor at Washington University in St. Louis, the problem has been building for some 30 years.
If you ask people, how angry are you feeling towards the opposite party? Or how frequently do you feel anger towards the opposite party? We're seeing basically 70% of Americans are reporting tremendous volumes of anger.
In a research paper on the subject, Sinclair points directly at politicians from both parties and how they use mistrust and anger to their advantage.
Candidates and campaigns have manipulated the emotion of anger to generate loyalty. So we often, we quip that a loyal voter is an angry voter, but anger motivates people to take political action. It motivates people to vote.
Sinclair adds that unrestrained anger can threaten democracy, which relies on healthy social interactions between people who disagree.
What we find in our research paper is really that it's the case that anger is so harmful for the things like, will you water your neighbor's plants when they're on vacation? And that it hurts people. It hurts neighborhoods and it hurts families.
As businesses face supply chain and staffing shortages, upset customers have been taking out their frustration on essential workers. Some restaurants are posting signs encouraging diners to be kind. John Cooper of the Christian rock band Skillet says while believers should stand up for biblical values, showing grace to those who disagree with our stance is vital.
Grace has to be us Christians being willing to tell the truth, but not treating our enemies the same way that they treat us. Recognizing that what we really want is for those people to come to know this amazing Lord that we know.
In her book, The Habits of Unity, 12 Months to a Stronger America, One Citizen at a Time, Elaine Park provides key anger management tools.
You can be in a space with someone whose views on a certain topic are entirely different from yours. Shift the conversation. Say, I respect your opinion.
As an antidote, Sinclair suggests civic engagement. Her recently created app, Magnify Your Voice, encourages partisan-neutral involvement in local communities.
There's so many things that we can do that go beyond our partisanship to take care of our basic humanity. And I think that is what matters the most. People are going to disagree about their politics, but they're going to care about each other as a community. And we have to have both things.
Meanwhile, Park believes spreading positivity can spark a unity revolution to help America heal.
Unity is not going to trickle down. We need to bubble unity up from the humility of our own hearts and souls, and be humble when we look in the eyes of another person, no matter what they think.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Finally this week, Israel is often leading the way when it comes to providing humanitarian aid during disasters around the world. In Ukraine, an Israeli field hospital is serving refugees fleeing the war. Emily Jones has that story and more from Jerusalem.
Welcome to Inside Israel, where we show you what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. Israel is on high alert after the nation suffered the single deadliest terror attack in years. Police say an Arab-Israeli man killed 4 people and injured 2 others in a stabbing rampage in the southern city of Beersheba. Amateur footage captured the stunning moment when witnesses confronted the terrorist before shooting and killing him. The assailant was a local Bedouin who had already served time in prison for trying to join ISIS in 2015. The family of the suspect publicly condemned the terror attack and offered condolences to the victims. Palestinian terror groups celebrated the attack. An Israeli field hospital in Ukraine is providing critical medical care to refugees fleeing the war. Here on the Polish border in western Ukraine, Israeli doctors are receiving patients every day. It's a humanitarian project led by Israel's foreign and health ministries.
Our mission is to make sure that Ukrainian people know they are not alone in this chaos.
The hospital includes an emergency room, delivery room, and departments for men, women, and children. Back at home, Israelis are welcoming Ukrainian refugees to the Holy Land. One of the first flights bringing Ukrainian Jewish refugees to Israel carried children traveling without family. These volunteers threw a special party for the children during Purim, a biblical holiday celebrating how God used Queen Esther to save the Jewish people from destruction at the hands of the Persian Empire.
It's also fun to educate the children. They are very appreciative, very attentive, very loving. We are trying to give them the feeling of being at home and of fun.
While these refugees aren't sure what the future holds, right now they're in good hands. Thank you so much for joining me for Inside Israel this week. To see more stories like this, watch our Jerusalem Dateline program at cbnnews.com. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Emily, and thanks for joining us this week. Until next week, from all of us here at Christian World News, goodbye and God bless you.